Hi, Davi here, and today we have a new episode in the Art Podcast series. And today we'll be doing a review or a kind of a reflection session for myself. So these are some drawings I did, studies basically I did last night, and I was supposed to fulfill or fill up an entire sheet, like one sheet. Let me just move this color wheel to the side. One sheet, one page. That was basically my aim for this session, but things happen. And I basically did this, like late at night. I was pretty much done with the day. But then again, it's not an excuse. I still needed to aim for this thing, but shit happens. But the point is, I did realize a few things. That number one, I am pretty slow when I'm studying. And maybe that's more of an expectation. I have this expectation, I guess, that I have to be super fast and like with these drawings or sketches. But when I'm trying to figure things out and actually study, I have to expect things to be somewhat slow, and I can't wait for or aim for speed. The speed should not be the major thing that I should be working on or focusing on. It should be this, and the byproduct or a characteristic, I guess, of studying is you're going to be somewhat slow, and I should just change that expectation. I should have timed it, but I think these were done like for 30 minutes or less than an hour basically. I did use the Lasso fill tool. It's super great. I do recommend you to use it, especially if you're struggling with your drawing. If you can draw but it feels like you're somewhat slow, like you don't feel like you're properly expressing yourself, and you don't feel like you have full control. My recommendation, and maybe it's because you're more of a painter and you're more impressionistic, or you're just more of a painting kind of artist, I do recommend using the Lasso fill tool, because you can do some really small details and at the same time achieve these sorts of like large areas with just one tool. And it's great. And if you zoom out, it does look like it was done with a pocket brush pen, one of those Pilot or Pentel pocket brush pens. And it does have it does take some getting used to. And I do think it helps if you have like a screen tablet, because you can be a bit more like detailed with it, or you can it's just easier to do the smaller strokes compared to say if you're just using a graphic tablet. But I do recommend this. And by the way, if you're using Clip Studio Paint, I'm sure you can do this in Photoshop as well. Go to your layer properties and make sure the layer you're working on in Clip Studio Paint anyway. Let me just unlock this. It's usually by default in color. Just turn it to monochrome. So it essentially limits your values to just black and white. So it's just two values when you're in monochrome. I mean, you also have like a grayscale version if you want to do grayscale studies. But my recommendation, if you're doing studies, especially the type of studies that I'm doing, just set it to monochrome. It just simplifies everything. And yeah, I also have one for this layer. It's more of my notes layer, I guess. But yeah. So use the Lasso fill tool. Make sure it's monochrome. It's just faster, and you don't have to worry so much about selecting like a random color. For example, if I use the color picker, if you go in between the white and the black, sometimes you'll see this gray, and oftentimes you will select that, and that kind of ruins your mark making, and you constantly have to do this undo, or maybe you have to paint over it. So it just kind of wastes time. And I think by limiting it to this kind of thing, monochrome, the layer property, you don't have to think so much about anything else but the actual drawing. So that's my recommendation. So what else? Use the Lasso fill tool. Expect things to be slow when you're studying. And by the way, the reason why I'm studying this specific subject, in this case, it's going to be like folds or fabric, or like this subject of clothing, I guess, but within the mecha realm. I'm basing this off of my last or a previous episode I did. I think it's um entitled strengths versus weaknesses. I essentially found out that I wanted to add more detail into my work, right? And I think my base artist or the artist that I wanted to kind of copy from and learn from was Nivan Shantara. And I wanted to learn like how he does these sorts of things, like these folds. And I wanted to bring that into my own like mecha designs or mecha slash creature designs. Because since I do a lot of since I do a lot of these sorts of like it's sort of a mix between a creature and a mech. I want to add more detail into my work, kind of like Nivan. So the best way for me to do it, I found out, was using my recommendation is to watch the full episode or that specific episode, but I wanted to just bring a bit more design, bring more information into my work because I don't want my work to just be completely vague. So to expand my skill set, I decided to focus on a subject, and in this case, it's going to be this, right? Maybe there's a proper term for this. It's sort of the folds. That's the best word I can come up with, but oftentimes you'll find this around the mecha like arms or mechanical arms or robots. It's a way to kind of, I understand, to contain like the wiring and the the gear and everything, or the hydraulics. But aesthetic wise, it does look cool. It does make your machines look a bit more organic by just adding these sorts of like folds or these sorts of massing. And by the way, I did these studies without reference. Now, it's not my aim to study without reference completely. I do want to study with reference because it's sort of because I want to study from real life, right? From real information and gather and break down real information. But I just wanted to test myself, I guess, and to see what I was capable of. And you can actually work out a lot of things. For example, even though I did these sorts of studies without reference, I think I was able to do a good job in being able to find out, say, like, to at least guess how the folds would work. Now, I could have done more, but obviously I was pretty freaking slow last night. And again, my aim was to do like one sheet, or one page, but I wasn't able to. I basically slept, and now I'm doing the the podcast episode. But I think this should be like a homework for us. I'm not sure what to title this episode, but maybe do your homework. Because if you're out of school or if you're in school, you always have to, not always, but you essentially have to be your own boss and decide what to study, how to study, when to study. And I think this is my process. Anyway, this is where I am. And as someone who's trying to expand his design kind of vocabulary or visual library, this is just where I am. And this is the step that I'm trying to take and have taken, and I'm going to continue to do. So you have to decide what exactly you want to focus on, and keep it simple. Just focus on one page or one sheet. Even if you don't finish the whole thing or finish the whole page or fill up an entire like sheet of paper or canvas with a bunch of studies and drawings, it's okay, for as long as you spend time doing the thing and actually like it's enough. A step forward is a step forward, right? So what's the takeaway from this sort of experience? I think what really bothered me was the fact that I was kind of slow, and I expected, I guess, to be a bit fast. But then again, I did not have reference, and it was also my first time doing this sort of thing. So I guess this is more of a reflection of my lack of experience, right? And I have to expect that if I don't have experience or much experience, I'm going to be slow, right? So I consider this process, or I have to consider this process as a way for me to build up my experience or my mileage. Mile? Am I saying it right? Mileage. Man, the pen is so big. I'll decrease the brush size a bit. Priced mileage. Basically your body of work or your volume of work. And when you're doing these sort of studies, I think it's important to have like a number. We have one number, and that's like one sheet of paper. But in terms of drawings, maybe 100. I mean, I have to expect that maybe if I've done 100 of these, all the way to like 500, all the way to like 1,000, eventually I'm going to figure out certain patterns, and I'm going to develop a sense of comfort when doing these sorts of things. And also I'm going to develop speed, right? Speed and efficiency. But these things come with efficiency. Efficiency, right? But these things come with time, and time via what? Time via experience. So I have to do a lot of these studies to be able to incorporate, basically process this idea of doing folds into my own work. So whenever I do these sorts of random doodles, I won't have to think as much about doing these sorts of things. I can just go ahead and apply them to my own, design or artwork, right? I guess is that the takeaway of this episode? I guess it's more of an update of where I am, and I do plan to fill this up. I'm not sure if I should, because my next step would have to be, from here is, using reference. So this is number 1 and this is number 2. I just wanted to try out and test out my actual kind of baseline skills. For example, this part right here, I just remembered how Ivan Shantara kind of did it, and I kind of, because he has some of these sorts of like packets in his mecha, or in his mech designs, kind of like this one and this one. So I wanted to kind of try it out, and so far it looks kind of good. I kind of know how to draw, I guess, or illustrate it, but it's still not, I'm not comfortable enough to the point where I can do it without thinking too much. I feel like I need to think a little more, and I think that's why I'm a bit slow, because I'm processing a bit too much information where it doesn't feel natural to me yet. So maybe that's the aim, and another aim I should have is to try until, or keep doing it until it becomes natural. So when it comes to experience, make sure you spend enough time on it until it becomes shit. Until it becomes natural, right? To the point where I can just doodle with it. And yeah, I guess this is something that I guess you can try out because it's fun, and keep it simple. Don't try to overcomplicate it. Even if you don't finish an entire page, having a few sketches out is still fun. Hopefully in the next episode I can show you, or some studies with where is it? Using reference with actual reference and reference, and maybe from there I can do like a tutorial on how to do different kinds of folds, because I know there are many kinds of folds. So I'm very excited to see how that will, how many folds I can find or come up with, and maybe I'll do a video on that, but on a different kind of series or playlist. I'm not sure, but yeah, just expect things to be slow whenever you're doing these studies, and you basically have to be comfortable with doing your own homework. No one is telling you to do this. No one is telling me to do this. But in a way, it's kind of exciting, is it not? Imagine filling up pages and pages of these sorts of things. I mean, it looks kind of epic, right? And it feels like you're actually taking art seriously. And it's a very artist thing to do, to do studies, to do their like work and stuff like that. And oh yeah, I guess another thing I should talk about is doing it in silence. Silence meaning I'm not recording the session. For example, I don't have an actual recording for these sketches over here. And the reason why is I feel like I'm being pressured when I have something, or when something is being recorded. So I think that affects the way I move, because when I know a timer is being, if I'm in a kind of, if I'm being timed, I don't think as much or as well. And I think that takes away from my study session. So if you're doing content, my recommendation is you may have to separate some art sessions just for you, just for your studies without being recorded. And maybe this is obvious advice, but for me, sometimes I concern myself with, oh, like maybe I should record this so I can make a video on it and stuff like that. And I'm always considering the content side of things, and maybe that's just a reality of today's kind of culture. And you can't help but think of how to monetize your work, right? But my recommendation if you're doing these studies is to not record it. Do a bunch where it's just you and you alone, and then do another session where you do record it. And I think by that time you're going to be a bit more comfortable with the subject you're trying to study, and you'll be able to be a bit more free, knowing that you won't be as iffy with your work. Because obviously when you record something, you don't want it to look really bad. And I think that's going to affect the way you do your studies. I think when you're doing studies, you have to make a lot of mistakes. And I think you need to take away the pressure of being kind of judged by not recording, right? And it's just not it's not just about recording, but maybe you don't have to post it. Now for me, I do want to post it since I'm not recording, because that's sort of the what's the word? The compromise I have. I still have to post it. It's fine if I make mistakes, but I have to find a way to post it. For example, I'm doing this video right now. You can't see me draw this. Maybe in a different video, but the idea is you just have to find a way to not pressure yourself so much. You need to make space for yourself to make mistakes. And having these sessions, maybe do this after your whole work day or your school day. In the end of the day, just do or try doing one page or one sheet of studies with reference, without reference. And if you don't complete it, it's still fine. At least you still did it. And that's basically your homework for that day. And maybe do this daily. Obviously, I'm just saying this because I know, or I feel like that's the proper answer. But obviously, I haven't done this. I'm still starting to do this kind of thing. But hopefully it works out and actually helps me in improving more my designs. So I guess that's it for this art podcast episode. I haven't drawn anything here, but it's more of a discussion, more of a reflection. But hopefully I can finish this sheet up. Maybe I'll try finishing it without reference, and then I'll do another sheet with reference. How about that? Who knows? So yeah, I guess the message, the final takeaway here is to, when you're doing your studies, expect things to be slow. And this too, make sure you're allowed or you have the opportunity to make mistakes, because that's how you figure things out. It's kind of like having a sketchbook. I mean, this in a way is a digital sketchbook where I can kind of solve things, experiment and stuff like that. If you feel like you're being pressured to present your work, maybe don't post as well. So don't record your stuff, don't post. But obviously, if you're a content creator, or you're trying to, or you have a social media platform that you're trying to work on, the compromise is maybe don't record, but just post your end result, right? Your end or result, right? So that's the compromise. You make all the mistakes you want in this sketchbook page, but in the end of the day, make sure you actually post something, right? Post your results. So that's the compromise. So hopefully this episode helps you in some way, and hopefully you start doing these sorts of studies. Pick one subject, pick one area you're trying to improve on, or really want to incorporate into your work, and do your homework. So that's it for this episode, for this art podcast episode. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.